Hi, I'm Dan Jenski. I'm the director, writer, editor of the feature film Addicted, and I'm here with Chris Gordon on Hellblazer Biz.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, my lovely audience, wherever you are in the world right now. Welcome to Hellblazer Biz with your host, as always, me, Chris Gordon. It's the show where you get to have your questions answered by your favourite TV and film stars. Hellblazer Biz comes to you along with the BS Podcast Network, where there's loads of podcasts out there to get yourselves listening, but not until you've listened to mine first and subscribed. Today I bring to you a great guest, as always. In my support for independent film, I'll always be happy, also when publicists come to me asking me to promote their clients. This week's guest is a director and writer, here to talk about his new film Addicted, which explores the very real use of non-prescribed drugs in colleges in the US to enhance performance. I introduce to you Dan Jenski. Good day, everybody. I have the pleasure of the company of Dan Jenski here, who is the creator, writer, and editor, as you've heard, of the new movie Addicted. Hi, Dan.
Hey,
Hope you're well. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate being on. Thanks, Chris.
I know it's all pleasures all mine. Like we've just discussed, you're 8 hours behind me at the moment, so you're in nice sunshine, and I'm in dark, dismal rain. And
Like I said, I won't keep you up too late. I promise.
oh no, it's fine. Don't worry. I'll be up for a lot longer. Cool. So as you know, I've got some questions for you to talk about. I've had the pleasure of actually watching Addicted last week, and I really enjoyed it. It was well, I say enjoyed it because it's not the kind of movie you can really you do enjoy it and you feel it, but obviously the theme and the of the whole film is not something that's an enjoyable theme because it's one you have to think. But it makes you think, if you know what I mean. It was a good movie to sit and watch. I'm not.
No. I went into the project kind of with that mindset where, you know, it. I'm not going to say there's a slight happy ending, I guess, but it's just more of I'm holding a mirror up to society because, I looked around, I came up with this idea 7+ years ago, and I just noticed that year by year, more and more people are on Adderall. More and more people are being overall prescribed pills, but the Adderall one's very, very unique because over here in the state, and I don't know if this is also in the UK, we have a huge opioid epidemic going on right now.
Yeah.
And so you hear about the deaths, it's linked to heroin. Sometimes they end up in heroin, but it's that kind of thing is very point blank. It's like, oh, of course it's a bad thing. But with Adderall, it doesn't look as bad because you're achieving goals. People correlate addicted with good grades, success, getting all your stuff done. And so when you look like in 2015, addicted sales eclipsed 11 billion. And yet it's not that people don't know of Adderall. It's just no one talks about it because there's other things that get all the attention.
Yeah.
And so, I was the kid when back in the 90s, I was almost put on Ritalin. I had a behavior problem, but I wasn't, dumb. I got into gifted classes.
Yeah.
I grew out of it. Unfortunately, I didn't have to get put on pills. But when I was in college, Adderall burst onto the scene, and that's when like the whole thing, Ritalin was like a niche, if you will. Adderall was like a commercialized pill that you started seeing snorted for recreation, people faking symptoms to get prescriptions, selling it, buying it for top price. A lot of people are procrastinators. They'll wait till the last minute, then pop some pills, and then crank out 24 straight hours of work. And it's just like, do you know what you're putting into your body? Do you understand that there's a bigger problem here? And of course there are that's just one facet of it. There are the kids that okay, my whole stance is, are we all uniquely different? Are we all wired differently? Absolutely. Are there people that when they ingest Adderall, its side effects make them feel a certain way? It makes them calmer? Absolutely. My whole thing is to challenge people to exhaust all of their possibilities, whether it's changing your diet, your sleep, not stressing. That's a key factor. But overall, it's the education system that needs a whole revamp, because you're trying to shove a lot of children, especially, into a model that doesn't work for them. So they get bored.
Yeah.
They're not pursuing what they truly love. They're being told they need an education. So we need to get to having our children lead the way into wanting an education and do things that they're truly interested in, instead of us telling them they have to do something.
Yeah. No, totally agree. I mean, it is. I mean, we're going to go further into that shortly as well, into the reasons. And I mean, I've heard of Adderall because I've actually got a friend who's got Lyme disease and is prescribed Adderall, and I know how much it changes a personality and everything without not wanting to, and because it is addictive, because you have to keep going. She's got it obviously for reasons which it's chronic, like the illness is there, but the addiction is it when there's no Adderall, the personality can change and really become quite aggressive, and it's worrying to see how such excuse me, how something can be so addictive like that. And I know she's this person has just let it know this is she. This person has been to hospital before, and blood tests have come back and said that it was like heroin in the system, because they but it wasn't. It was the Adderall that was being prescribed, but they came back saying that's how much that's how close it must be. Like you just said, to heroin itself. It's got the opiate in there, and it's a deadly drug.
Actually, it's more. It's an amphetamine.
That's
and
the one, none.
Yeah, it's actually like, you can call it a cousin of meth. That's what it is. And so it's not medicine. It's a substance that gives you side effects that changes who you are. And it's a double-edged sword, because not only are you changing the balance of your brain and everything, you're telling yourself, I can't succeed without this. Yeah. So it's a double addiction that really cripples a lot of people. And like you said, I know people who they'll freak out if they don't have their Adderall because of the imbalance now, and because they gotta have it. So it's a very, very slippery slope we're going up as a society.
It is, especially when it's banned by sports federations as performance enhancing as well. So surely that should say something.
That's the crazy part is. You have, the NFL, for instance, players getting suspended for a performance-enhancing drug, and then you're giving the same thing to 4-year-olds. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute, like, hold on, what really is it? And so you have to call it for what it is. It's amphetamine. It makes, there's a pleasure aspect to it that makes you kind of feel good. I know people that have been prescribed it for an antidepressant. I also, some of these companies have come up with creative other uses for it. Like there's one called binge eating disorder, where, sometimes we get emotional, sometimes we're bored, sometimes we go to food to cope with something. Yeah. And like, well, instead of that, here's a pill so you don't eat all that stuff. And I'm like, how about we fix why you need to binge eat and what your emotional situation is, and fix it first. Everyone wants the quick answer. Everyone wants the instant gratification, and a lot of times just a Band-Aid just to keep moving and sweep it under the rug.
Exactly. And it is very scary, and I think that's the way society sort of is moving. And it's not just the US, that's over here as well. People quite happily go to the doctors and get prescribed stuff, just to, as I say, just like a Band-Aid, just so they can have it and move on. And I know in our universities, it's not Adderall they have, it's other things. We've got something at the moment called Nox, which is quite illegal. It's it's just it's what do you call it? The dentist laughing gas.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nitrous
nitrous oxide. Yeah, they have little capsules about that big, silver capsules. I'm only mentioning it because I've seen about 10 of them as I was walking back from the train station.
Wait,
And
wait, it's like it's a pill?
no, it's a gas. They
Oh,
snort the
oh,
gas. It's like it's not a pill, but it's a
oh,
gas.
okay,
But
okay.
they can legally buy that to try and make
Yeah,
themselves
yeah, yeah.
feel better and
Oh,
stuff. But yeah, it's just it's
yeah,
crazy.
we've had that for decades. Like that's just. I was just talking about that the other day, and I'm just like, gosh, the things people do just to like, I heard something. I got to give my exec producer props on this, Tom Bryan. I saw him last week, and he came up with something kind of cool, and there was the difference between happiness and pleasure.
Hmm.
And he says happiness is you live that your life is completely going as you want. You have great relationships. You feel good. You're happy. You're on a roll. This
Yeah.
and that. Pleasure is the instant gratification. It's the thing you turn to because you feel bad.
Hmm.
You want to escape. You're down on your luck. And too many people try finding happiness and pleasure, but whether it's a drug, whether it's alcohol, sex, material things, I mean, it has such a short shelf life that once it's over, you're trying to get it again and then some. And so a lot of
Yeah.
people go that route and then just turn out to be messes or unfulfilled. You got to go the happiness, which is you have to be healthy, you have to be balanced, and you just have to keep your eyes on the prize and just not get. It's all about handling stress, and so there is a difference between the two. And it was really cool that he mentioned it because I look at things in a different perspective now once I heard that.
It is actually a very good way to describe it. Very, very good indeed. Cool. So moving on to some of the questions I've got in here now, sort of taking us back away from addicted again. I say these are kind of generic ones here, and I saw and I've read obviously originally you were going to be a lawyer. And you're going through that kind of acting class. You changed your path. Were you nervous about changing? Because from going something so secure as like the path of a lawyer, then changing it into an acting world, a writing world, which is notoriously difficult, and and because it's very difficult, and to sort of push yourself further in that when there's so much around you.
I actually find more security going the route I did because I felt I was in complete control of what I wanted to do. Law school, I made the decision. I transferred to the University of Missouri in 2002, and I was still pre-law at that time, and I had started taking some theater classes as fillers. I felt actually, I remember talking with my mom about it, just saying, you're in front of people. These are good classes to, orate and really kind of something different to lend itself to law.
Yeah.
Once I started taking them, the seed was planted. And I saw, with law, it is so rigid and by the books, which is great for some people. Some people love that. I'm not like that. I'm not built for that. And so when I started doing, at first it was just acting, a couple classes at Missouri.
Yeah.
I moved out to LA. My first 3 years were just acting. And I started, and I made some great roads. I was able to join SAG, the Screen Actors Guild. I got a commercial agent after my first year out here. I was going on some pretty awesome commercial auditions, and I was taking some classes. I was growing as an actor. But at the end of 2008, the only thing I could land, I was landing lead roles in student films at USC and short films where I kind of hit a ceiling where I couldn't get past that. And so the catch-22 out here is you can't get to like big time feature films or commercials or shows without an agent or a manager. You can't get an agent or manager most of the time unless you're getting that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I had left my commercial agent after the second year, so things kind of slowed down a bit. But I took matters in my own hands. I was like, well, let's just write my own things, So I took a writing class, really just kept building on my writing. And when I had a short film ready to go, I was like, well, no one's going to pay to make this thing happen.
Yeah.
So I did my first short film with all Craigslist ads. I found, I was like, we need a camera. Okay, let's find someone with a camera. And trying to pay with a restaurant server's salary, you couldn't pay the actors. I got to feed them. But you take the short film and you grow on that. You bring back the people you work well with. Mm-hmm. So the second short film, which was Addicted, the feature film, a short film version, we did that, and we just kept growing and growing. And I just, along the way, you realize how much autonomy and creative freedom you have. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, no, this is the way to go. The only thing I was ever nervous about at first was telling my parents, even telling some of my friends. I didn't want to, I was just insecure at the time, and I had proven myself. But, after a little while, like I said, getting the agent, getting into SAG, you kind of had something of like, hey, I've made some grounds. Mm-hmm. I made strides with this, support me now. Like I'm going to go after this. And they were like, okay, cool. My mom and her boyfriend, but they've said since then, even after this film, they wondered what would have happened if I would have gone to law school. And I'm like, you're missing the point. I'm happy. I'm happy. So I'm so glad I made the decision.
No, it is a really great decision to have made, and it's great. I've got a friend in particular who's actually just written a short movie, and she's at the stage now where it's exactly as you've just described. She has, there's no money because it's the first ever film, so it's going to be done with a GoPro camera on her head. She's going to take the part of one role, and it's the script's great. To be fair, I've read it, and I think it'll work. So it's nice to hear from someone who's gone through that from behind the scenes, because obviously I normally talk to a lot of actors, so it's nice to hear from a writer's perspective and how you've gone and the process that you went through to sort of get there. And I know perfectly well about the parents, because I was going to be an actor when I was about 17, 18. I was going to go to LAMDA, which is the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, and I was told to take exams there and everything. But my parents were like, they for the right reasons, I'll never knock them because I love them to bits, was like, we'll steer you along this direction to make sure you've got a secure, safe future. Sure. And even now, I'm doing this interview since I'm 2 years now, and I love it. And my mum's just coming round to it now because she can see the passion that comes out of it, and she understands that this is what makes me happy. I was talking to my boss today, and it was a new job today, first day, and I was like, I told him, I said, yeah, I'm really sorry. I said, I normally leave it 2 weeks before I mention my show to anyone at work. I said, you've lasted 2 hours. But at lunchtime, we were chatting away, and he turned to me, and he was just like, I've never seen someone so full of energy. And he was just like, I'm just wondering how I could, what you can do in the workplace with that energy. He says, because it's absolutely fascinating listening to you talking. And when I hear that, it's like, well, that shows how happy like yourself, like what you're doing with the writing, it's how happy you are when you finally find something that you can do that you really enjoy.
Absolutely. And now imagine taking that and applying it to when children come out the womb. Imagine, because I do get some heat from people saying, I'm trying to take away meds, I'm, this and that. And I'm just like, I'm not, if it works for you, awesome. But if we allow our children, when they're born, obviously be as healthy as possible with them, have a good home life, teach, stress management and like how to do that. But the most important thing is I'm fully convinced if every single person in this world was able to do what it exactly is they love to do, and there's multiple things, this world would be the most positive place in the entire universe. And that's what's really bringing people down, is because, you're told you have to go to school, you're told you have to go to work. But if you, over here, there was a federal education program. It's kind of on its last legs. It's called Common Core, and it's gotten scrutinized by not only politicians and people, but most importantly, parents. I've talked to so many people who are just like, this is like dumbing our children down. And so you have to, like I said, start at an early age, but teach them like, hey, what do you want to do today? We do a good job with sports. We do a good job with arts. Like a lot of parents are like, do you want to try acting? Do you want to try this and that? But when it comes to the school, which is linked to career, the parents are giving them to a school, so they're not there. And so when a child is born, the child it's a one student most of the time to two teacher ratio. And that's what it has to come back to, where we're not 30 students to a teacher. 100 students to a teacher. I mean, there's times and places where that works, but for the most part, teachers are underpaid. Everyone's spread thin. The education system's crumbling. So we all need to work together where it's like, children lead the way, and let's have them tell us what they want to learn about. We all can agree that we need to know basics of math, but like once you get past like a little geometry and maybe some advanced algebra, a lot of people aren't going to use that stuff again. So in order to be happy, I need to start early and let them lead the way.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm 42 this year, and I've not used Pythagoras' theorem since I was 16 years old.
Guess what just popped in my head? That exact theorem.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it, but I have some math friends who are like, hey, I still use that. So.
Yeah, so do I, to be fair.
And they'll make an argument like, well, it's not necessarily the theorem, it's the problem solving and using your brain in that way to get there, which is what they're. And I'm like, okay, sure. If the student wants to learn that, great. But let's have that. These people are here focus on their strengths. These people are here focus on their strengths, and let's like I said, everyone doing what they want to do and love. I know that's the solution.
Oh yeah, definitely. It is great. I'm trying to think over here. The schools are very same. You've got teachers underpaid, overworked. It's exactly, there's so many similarities in that respect in the education system here. And they can't watch the kids. You've got one teacher for 30 kids, so they can't always look after each individual kid. And they've all got their own needs. They've all got their own wishes and desires. My little lad's just done a film project. He did one for school, and he loved it so much that they actually encouraged and gave him a letter, an entry form for. I'd say it was North Wales. It was a Wales International Youth Film Festival. It's not an all Wales one, apparently. I found that out afterwards. That's what they've called it. But he entered the film, and they're screening his film. He's 10, but he had such a blast. He made it. He acted in it. It was with his little friend from school, and he had such a blast. And it's that kind of thing which you've just described, where they're encouraging the kids to actually do something and do what they love doing, and. Yeah, rather than they've got to go around the educational route, but they're actually letting them breathe and letting them do what they want to do.
Yeah, it's to me, it's a no-brainer, and it's like, I talked with my friend last week whose son is 9, who he can write code for computers. He has his own YouTube. He puts videos on YouTube and stuff. He was telling me about like he'll bring him into his work, and like his son will know how to do this, and that. I have friends with younger kids. I am seeing it is amazing, this generation of children right now that have phenomenal abilities. And, technology has helped, but you don't want to be too dependent on technology. You can use it for your, like we are right now, to communicate and stuff. But the idea is to use all your resources to the best of your abilities. And you described it was your friend's son, right?
No, my son.
Oh, your own son?
Yeah.
I thought I had a friend's son. I'm sorry. So congrats on that. But you're describing him, and I'm thinking like, oh, he must. If you would have taken age out of it, I'm like, oh, he probably went to USC, just graduated film school or something like that. So it's really cool, and I'm sure he's excited about it, and that's what you want to see, because kids smiling, it's the best feeling, because they're on the right path.
Yeah. Exactly, and it's that happiness, it's that passion, and it's it's being able to nurture that and let them roll with it and let them go with it. Speaking of obviously what we were just talking about there, and moving on from the kids and passions, who inspires you in the world of directing and draws you?
When I was a kid, like I said, the horror films of the 80s were absolutely spectacular. I loved Steven Spielberg stuff in the 80s. And that's when like imagination was just so big. It was so cool. Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, and Evil Dead were probably my 2 favorite movies as a kid. And so in the 90s, as I started growing up, horror films kind of started just not, I was maturing, but also they just became, the shock value was over.
Yeah.
You can only do a style or things for so many so many years before it gets old.
Yeah.
So in the 90s, I started turning to, I liked a lot of David Fincher stuff. Seven was I had that movie on repeat for like a year straight in like '96. It was such a great movie, and then of course Fight Club. But as the 2000s came into play, you started noticing a change from movies to TV shows. And some of my favorite, I'm a huge dialogue person. I love intelligent dialogue. I like character development. And TV shows, over the course of a 10, 12 episode season, you can get deeper and darker. And
oh, yeah, definitely.
You can do that. So the TV shows, when I moved out to LA, so every part of my life, inspiration is for different things. Early on, it was imagination, but when I'm an adult and I'm trying to do it, you're looking for inspiration for your work now. And so, The Wire, do you know that show from HBO?
Yeah.
All-time favorite show. I've seen the series 3 times. I can't get enough of it. It was one of the realest things, and that really inspired me because actually in The Wire, especially in season 4, they talk about the education system and how underfunded and just how much of a mess it is.
Yeah.
So, shows like The Wire, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, this is writing, acting, production value at the top of the game. And if you want to get to that level, you have got to make sure every single frame of what you make is truthful, is your best foot forward, and everything. So it's kind of like I'm not the only person I'm competitive with is myself. I'm not trying to outdo other people, but they allow you to kind of compete with yourself to get on the level. And so, yeah, I have a wide array of things that I draw on for inspiration.
Excellent. I was going to say, I'm asking that question purely because I just threw that one in. Because at the moment I've got on pause because I didn't get time to finish it. Is Blade Runner by Ridley Scott's original Blade Runner, and I was just like, I was thinking that watching that as a cinematic piece of masterpiece. So I thought I'd just throw that in and see from a director's point of view who you sort of inspired. Where you drew Steven Spielberg, like you say. I follow exactly where you're going with that because I was an '80s kid, so all those movies were mine. And then, like you say, in the '90s, groups of Freddy's and Jason, and then. Oh, yeah. Then they died a death. Well, yes, pardon the pun.
I don't know too many people our age range who didn't watch the Spielberg or George Lucas stuff. Like I said, the imagination aspect of that all. E.T. I mean, gosh, like you can go watch Jurassic Park, and the effects of Jurassic Park. I watched it like 6 months ago, and they still stand up to this time. That T-Rex is so much better than like 99% of the CGI stuff coming out these days. Where I heard about the process that it took to get there, and it's very expensive. I can't remember the name or how it is. So a lot of times, I talked to a guy who's in visual effects, they try to pay these digital artists for CGI peanuts. So not getting the best talent necessarily. I'm not saying there's not talented people doing their thing.
Yeah.
But when I see bad CGI, I get distracted and I'm out of my head. So if I don't have to use that stuff, I try not to. This film didn't need it, obviously, but the stuff that Spielberg did through the 80s and a lot of the 90s is just, it kept you going with the imagination. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even Star Wars back in then, my first ever filming was with Michael Sheard, who played Mr. Bronson in Grange Hill, which is a UK show, and he was Admiral Ozzel in The Empire Strikes Back. And I did some filming with him for 3 days. He drank us under the table 3 nights in a row. The guy was just really knock him back. But who told the Star Wars story? That little tentacle, remember in the trash compactor? Because it was all, it was all proper props. And that little tentacle was the size of a football pitch, in reality, underneath. But you don't see it. But it's because, like you say, it's like Jurassic Park. There's parts of it you don't see how big these sets and these props that they actually did were before the days of CGI and the way we've got it now.
Well, even one of the fortunate, this whole path I've been on, this was my first time I ever edited anything, and so as as in post-production. So once you're offset, and it goes to editing, it goes to coloring, sound design, music, score, you get to see that is where the movie is made. And it's so cool, the effects you can use. Something as simple as, we filmed at the University of Missouri, which is where I went, but just to wipe off the facade of a sign that says University of Missouri and then put in Missouri A&M University, because we had to create a fictitious school. Yeah. And it's real, and you see it on screen, and it says so much because you're saying this is where the location's at, this is the name of the school, but it doesn't exist. And it's a really cool, the whole post-production thing is where everything gets turned into the cinema. Yeah. And even if a lot of directors don't edit, because there's this whole adage that, back in the day when you used film, you needed a specialist to edit, to snip the film and put it all together. It was an actual trade. So, and it still is, but with digital now, you can teach it yourself. I taught myself on YouTube videos and calling Apple to see, hey, how do you do this on Final Cut Pro? But once I learned, I know how to do it now. So once you get past the technical stuff, it's a rhythm and stuff. And so I really want people to understand how important the editor is. They make or break your film. Yeah. So it's a really cool experience to have gone through all this to see what it really goes on behind the scenes.
That is fantastic, and that's how you edited it yourself as well. And I mean, phone calls to Apple, I do that at the moment. I've done that for mine, just to try and see from my little show, just try and get even just the opening credits. To I've been trying to figure out how to make those a bit more snazzy, and and it is you learn as you go along, and things get better and progress. So it's great. To see see that kind of thing. Okay, moving on to more obviously addicted stuff now, which I'm glad you know about. Carissa's just quickly asked, you sent one in, what's the most shocking moment you've had while filming Addicted?
Shocking moment?
Yeah, or funny. Shocking or funny, I suppose.
Oh man, hold on. Filming. See, I know we're on it. I don't want to have to just keep thinking about this. I would say the overall, it was just so cool to see, because there's never any dramatic, a crane didn't fall and ruin a set. We didn't have anything like that go on. It was very, stressful at times, but it was really cool to film on location and see the outpouring of support from Columbia, Missouri natives and the University of Missouri faculty and students. Yeah. And so them coming together, I gave a lot of them roles in the film. A lot of people let us use their, a pizza parlor here, a bar there, class there. It was more of, I wasn't shocked, but you don't know how cool it feels until you go through it. Yeah. So that was really the whole wow, that felt absolutely amazing. So nothing negative really happened on set like that. We always said we felt we were being guided by a bigger hand. And so it was just the outpouring of support that was really kind of it really made me pause and reflect how blessed I am to know a lot of the people I know and to have gone through Missouri specifically.
Brilliant, excellent, fine. It doesn't have to, there's no big shocking moments.
Dramatic, infighting and, Desperate Housewives type story. I apologize for that.
No, it's great. It's great. Now, we've kind of touched on this earlier as well, because I was one of the questions that I was going to bring in is, with the fact that it's such a specific and targeted film topic, have you got any personal experiences with Adderall? Is that why kind of you wanted to bring it? Because I know you went to school law school. I could imagine that this kind of not yourself. I don't mean taking it yourself. I mean, did you see? Is it stuff that you've seen going on, and that's what sort of sprung it to your attention?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I tried it. I couldn't. I tried it during finals in 2005. My friend had it, and I wanted to go run a marathon. I was my heart was just boom, 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 and I couldn't even sit still and study because it puts blinders on you. It was something that didn't feel good inside me. And I know a lot of people, whether personally or I've heard stories that actually they hate being on Adderall, but they feel they need it. My bigger thing was, like I said, you write what you know, and I had mentioned to you I had seen Adderall come onto the scene. I had seen it growing. I had a few friends that had issues with it. Mm-hmm. And so you start just like peeling back the layers, and you start seeing that teachers are incentivized to refer students to doctors, and doctors are incentivized, I'm not saying financially, but they were given perks. It's you can go find this anywhere. This isn't
drug dealer with a license. That's one of the phrases I got from the film. Is perfect. Yeah, drug dealer with a license.
And that's the rated G version, because there is an F word that's in there. That's good. But yeah, I felt like I had a very compelling story about society to at least, I don't even bring up pharma in the movie. I don't try to call out anybody in particular. It's more like, hey, on an individual level, let's all be responsible. And, the whole thing with, I've met a couple doctors who encourage their patients, question them on everything, double check what I'm telling you and that kind of stuff. And so everyone needs to play that part in this. And I just felt it was a good way to, there was a good way to open some eyes, but trust me, one thing I love about films is the relatability factor. And I knew I had something on all levels with people, either the person on pills, the person who doesn't have a prescription, the helicopter parent who's always telling their kids how to live their life, the bad doctor, the good doctor, all of it. I just feel if I'm going to tell a story, I want as many people to relate as possible. And I knew I had something.
Yeah, definitely, and it does. It's great, and I think that definitely comes across in the film, because when you've got a vested interest, when you've got that experience and you've seen it, and and you've got the passion that you want to get this story told, it does come across. Like I say, I've seen the film, and I would recommend it to anyone to watch, because it's an it's an entertaining film. There's funny bits in there, there are bits in there which which make it light, but there's obviously. It's that underbelly. I mean, we've touched on it before with Drew, obviously the main male lead, Luke Golden. I'm speaking to him as well soon, which would be a great. The stress it is. Oh well, it's the stresses of school. It's the pressures, like you say, from he's got his football going on, so he's got the football coach going on at him to try and beat him. Get him better at football. So then he's got his studs. This is one thing. In America, it's different because you get scholarships for like football and things, but you still got to do your school. We don't have that, so that's.
Wait, how's your system?
No, we don't. Well, we have degrees, but we go. If we go to a degree universities for degree, we don't get a scholarship. For example, if we go to football or hockey or something, we don't have scholarships where they get paid to go through. They just go through for the subjects that they taught. Like German, math, science, or whatever like that. So they don't get subsidised. Some do from the armed forces and things, but yeah, it's very different in that respect. So yeah, that's the big difference. So yeah, he's obviously got those pressures. He's failing his classes, splits from his girlfriend. He's got all those pressures on him. So I can see where, if something's as readily available as Adderall for him to get that high, just to get him through it and get him over it, it can really take it.
Absolutely. And he's been on it. His character. He's been on it since age 10.
Yeah.
And there's a big revelation at the end.
There is, yeah. I wasn't gonna. I did have a question on that. I thought, no, I'm taking that out. That's going to spoil the whole thing.
But yeah, he also more. He's kind of. I like how Luke shows this kind of. He's kind of numb to it at this point because he's been on it half his life, but he shows that he needs it because he's been told his whole life, you're getting your grades because of this, you're succeeding because of this. And so that's that double-edged sword where, never mind his chemical makeup and what it does, because, he doesn't even remember what it's like to be off of them.
Yeah.
He's just dependent. He's like, no, I am where I am right now because of it. And, his mom, he's got law school on the horizon. And so he really succumbs to the pressures of everything around him. And that's the thing right there where it's like, instead of taking pills and stressing, because that's the number one killer, in my opinion, is stress. Stress, it causes cancer. It causes a whole array of other things to go wrong. And so you have to ask yourself, why am I stressing? Why am I trying for a 4.0 GPA? Well, you have a good GPA, you can achieve bigger things. But why is that GPA so important? All 4.0 GPAs aren't created equal. And it's like, are you really doing it because you love the school? Or is it we're telling you need that 4.0 or as close to it as possible? And so now you're barely sleeping, you're popping pills, you're doing this, you're doing that. And you're not doing it for a labor of love. You're doing it because you're being told you have to do it.
Yeah, and I know, especially in this film as well, there's not a spoiler. Obviously, his mother is very pressured to her. She's got a very high-powered job, and you can see there's pressure from that side as well. That she doesn't want to lose face in that kind of in the fact she's pushing him to get to be as successful as she is in that way. And so you can just see everything piling against the poor kid. So you can understand, it's just like let him do what he wants. And even Ashley as well with Lauren Sweetser with Ashley. It's her character. You can see her character going down at the same time, and it's just. Well, that's what I needed to ask you, because again, sororities and fraternities are something which we have. What's with the clicking? I don't. The clicking when they're in the which was obviously in the meeting and they're just clicking. Is that an agreement thing?
Yeah, that it's funny because people in the Greek system, the sorority system, my fraternity, Beta Theta Pi. That's what we do.
Right.
Instead of at a chapter meeting, instead of clapping, it was snaps. And so I found out that not everyone does it. Some houses do, some don't.
Yeah.
And so, like I said before about making every frame of your movie as real and truthful as possible, that's what they do. That's what they do. And it's just a lot of people that go through the Greek system love that scene, mostly because of the snaps in it. It's pretty remarkable.
I did laugh. I gathered that's what it's for. I just wanted to make sure. Cause I was just like sitting there, and all you could hear was this little clicking. At first, I was like, I thought I was looking around. Who's clicking? Because it's off screen, so you can hear it. But no, But it was again. It's a very good realism thing of, like bringing it real there. And that's again where you see Lauren. She's going down from that side because she's got different pressures that she's going through. She's got the sorority and she's having the social aspect to keep her social standing, social stature within the sorority, and that's where her pressure comes from, as well as obviously the schoolwork and the fact she's doing everybody else's that's just ruined it. But she's going and doing all that work that she's got on her head as well, and it's
that didn't ruin anything. She talks about how she's written papers for I know plenty of people that did that in college. Person, either they're struggling or they're just either person's struggling in school and needs some help, or they just don't want to do it. Like, hey, whatever. But yeah, she's her stuff is the self-inflicted stuff where Drew's comes from his mom. This isn't giving anything away either. His dad has passed away. Yeah. So it's he's got a lot on his plate. But Lauren, who plays Ashley, she, the overworking in class and writing other people's papers, this, that, internships. She's going through a breakup. So it's two different avenues, and that's the biggest thing I wanted to show. And so interesting how they're both correlates with one another. And it doesn't matter where it's coming from. Stress is stress. Stress is real. And you have to figure out how to minimize that at all costs.
Exactly. And it's also with Ashley's character as well, where she gets the stuff from. Like you say, and that's the whole point of the fact non-prescribed stuff and how it passes around and consequences, which I won't say, but the consequences around all that kind of thing.
No, absolutely.
I mean, as well as the other thing about live movies, you can see, and I think this from people I know who've been on it, there is help out there as well being offered, but because the characters are so drawn on themselves as well that they don't actually see that there's help being offered to them, and they can't, and they're just blindsided to it. They can't understand. I mean, there's several points in the film where I'm like, it's right there. You can't. I wrote all my notes saying the help's right there, but because you're so focused and you're so addicted, you just can't. You can't see it.
That's what Adderall feels like. You have blinders on. it really just like puts you in this zone where you're just like you have phenomenal focus. And that's the thing. Everyone's wired differently. So some people, like, I don't even get that effect on me. My body like just rejects it. But a lot of people, especially procrastinators, it puts them in the zone.
Yeah.
They go to town on it. And like you said, when someone's offering some help, you're not going to notice it because you think help is one thing when in reality it's another.
Yeah. Exactly. And and it's nice to see. It is good because you portray people in a great light in the film as well, and people who may not seem, who might seem like they're doing things in a bad way, like the teachers, etc. But you see, in reality, it's not that. Again, it's just it's a lifeline. It's a branch that they're trying to reach out and trying to encourage them rather than. And that was a very important theme as well. I think just sit back, like you said, you should take that step back and realise that there are branches there. Just take them and get yourself out the flood, should I say? And
Absolutely. And I wanted to show, teachers, like right now to me, teachers, and I don't mean salaried. I'm talking about true teachers, people that teach, that people want to, help people grow. Teachers and parents are the two most important jobs right now that we need in society. People, I'm talking true parents, true teachers. There's a lot of people that do love their children and stuff like that. But like I said, once it goes to the school system, it's a partnership at that point. And you have to work together, and you have to know everything that is going on and what they're learning, and asking them, are you happy? Are you doing this and that? So I wanted to show the teachers are so important. And so we and then now I'm talking about the ones that are salaried, like actual teachers.
Yeah.
They need to be better paid. They need to be better paid. I know plenty of teachers who should be employed who aren't. And I know plenty of teachers who are employed who shouldn't be. And they need to care, patience. Not a lot. That's the key ingredient. That patience and empathy. That's what every single teacher should have. There should be prerequisites for every single teacher. Patience and empathy.
Definitely. And I think there should be less. From my experience, and this is from the UK, it's probably in the US as well. From my side, I think parents should stop using teachers as just babysitters all the time, and because the parents hold that responsibility so much in instilling values, and again in the film you can see the mother, in my eyes anyway, is just really selfish because she's in her way, which she is, so she just wants to push her own agenda, and you can see where that's going, and she just selfishly, whether it's selfishly or not, she loves her son obviously, but and things realise, but she just pushes that on him, and it is a selfish act. And do you think a lot of addicted to Adderall is out there because parents might think it's the easier way out? Not all parents. I say some parents are just thinking, I don't have to cope with this. If I just put them on there, then I don't need to cope.
Well, I do agree with that, and I've read plenty of articles where I can't remember. There was an article. It might have. I can't remember the publication. It was from 2012. A few years back, there was a doctor in Alabama or Georgia, I can't remember the state, who was interviewed, and he said that parents come to him, not even saying, my kid has ADD. They tell him the education system is so bad that they want their kids on Adderall to make up for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, how about we fix the education system? I don't mean to beat a dead horse. I've said that a bunch of times, but referring to this article, there's a bigger problem here. And so, you said parents giving their kids to teachers as babysitters. The past 10 years, I've seen the iPad or iPhone be the babysitter, where it's like, hey, take this, sit in the corner and just go do whatever. That's even worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think, my thing is, if you're going to have a child, be ready for it. There are plenty of people who, I want to give my sister Mom of the Year award because I see how she is a mother to my nephews now.
Yeah.
And it's just so fascinating, like how, and I brought this up over the weekend. We come from the video game generation, where we were the first generation to have a Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis, all that, where we started playing less outdoors and more indoors.
Yeah.
And so after our generation, the next generation, we've been able to see a before and after of like what that does to a child's health, what that does just in general to kids as far as not only just like burning off energy or stuff, but you're staring at a screen, you're in another fantasy, you're not in this world, you're in a video game world.
Yeah.
And so knowing who my friends are, knowing my family, seeing people with children young now, like 10 and under, I just really believe our generation is the one that's like, we're not going to allow this to happen. We're going to break that cycle. And everyone I know is like, no, my kid's staying away, limited exposure to that stuff.
Yeah.
It's one thing my sister's been great at. So you can show them an iPad or a TV, and as long as you limit it and you are communicative with them with how this all works and stuff, I really think our generation is going to be saving this planet.
Oh, no, I do agree. So my son's, he's got his, and you're right, he's addicted to his stuff as well. But what we try and do is he limits his stuff, because it does if he's on it too long. It's the I call it a paddy. So it's the mightiest, like he throws the mightiest paddy going, because his brain can't cope with it being on too long. So we always spend the weekends taking him out to castles, because we lucky in Wales, we've got castles everywhere. And he loves that. So and that's what I think should be done more of. And you're right, because it's despairing to see when you walk around and you just see all these little babies and kids on electronic gadgets, because no wonder. I'm probably going to get into trouble with a lot of people now. So I say, but no wonder there's a lot of ADD in the world. If from a very early age they've been given gadgets to sit and play with, because their brains are focusing and developing in such a different way than they should. Because I mean, my young kids, when I was young, I think I'm a bit older than you, so I was like out playing in the woods and cycling and down in the woods and playing in the river in a park near where I am. And my son was like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I used to go and play in the woods for like hours on end and come home covered in mud and soaking wet." That
was the best.
Yeah.
There were 3 straight summers I was in a pond, a lake, or some kind of wooded area where all that stuff is so fascinating to me. And so I play video games too. I actually, sure, maybe like during winter I played more or something like that. But like I said, we were able to see a before and after and know like where this could be headed. And like you said, the one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, which you did, is the technology factor, where you can have, just on your laptop alone, 8 to 10 different apps running with music, with like 5 different web pages and this and that. Plus you have the TV on over there, your phone's over there. You might have people around. We're constantly distracted. And so there's this really weird kind of crossroads we're coming to as a society, where some people look at that and say, oh my God, but we should be able to do that. We should want that. So here's a pill, like the AI movement, that the artificial intelligence thing that's going on, where we're kind of, some are going towards that route. I'm hearing stories about like chip implants and, linking our brains up to an I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just that. I know how powerful the brain is in a natural state, where I don't need to bring my attention span level up to where I'm constantly just doing this and that. I'm the type of person who whatever is keeping my attention gets my attention.
Yeah.
I'm the type that I will be reading a book and I'll stop mid-sentence and I'll get up, go brush my teeth, maybe go check some sports out, do this and that, and I'll come back to the book. Because the book, up until that moment, kept my attention. Now I'm going to do something else. I'm the ultimate multitasker. So what I do, that skill set is actually what they kind of label ADD, where you jump from one thing to the next. But first off, I love it, because like I said, whatever I'm concentrating on in the moment is what I'm supposed to be concentrating on and have attention. Also, I don't want to put amphetamine in my body. That's it. So It's a
Exactly.
we're coming to a crossroads. I hope we don't get to this crossroads where it's like you have to make a decision. I hope we can kind of go another path before we get there. But
Yeah.
there's some slippery slopes with everything going on.
Oh, there is. I mean, there's that Minority Report effect, isn't there, where they're trying to do
Yeah.
that, where you can walk past an advert and it'll immediately know exactly what it'll scan the chip in your arm or your brain, and it'll just
Yeah.
tailor it. I mean, Amazon already does that on bloody internet, and it winds me up to chronically. You sit on Facebook and you've just looked at Amazon, but you'll find all the stuff you've just looked at is plastered everywhere. It's like, stop. It's
Pretty scary.
It is. It's very scary. So what's the other word? WallE, isn't it? Where they're all just sat there, massive, big, obese, and they're just like the humans. Is it WallE?
I never saw that.
I can't remember if it's WallE, but I think it's a future world. But it's so technology driven. You just got all these.
Was it a car?
The animated. Yeah.
Oh,
No, it's the
WallE.
animated WallE, the animated one. Yeah, and I think they're all just. This is where I've got a son. You see, they're all just obese and they're sitting in like floating chairs with VR goggles on. That's the human race now, and they don't get out the chairs. They just sit there, and the whole purpose is at the end they actually stand up and realise they've got legs they can use to walk on, because it's just gone in such a way that they've got everything to hand. They don't need to get out of the chair because everything's they can touch everything.
It's just like I'm just this type of person that like if I'm idle, I go crazy. I need to get out. I need to do something. I need to use my brain. I heard a quote that you ever heard of the TV show Dexter?
Yeah,
that's one of my favorites too. One of the characters says, I think this is the line. It's just boredom is the most dangerous thing in the world. Mm-hmm. That couldn't be further from the truth. And there's so many different types of boredom, whether it's from the classroom or just in life. That's when you turn to that. I was talking about that happiness versus pleasure correlation. The boredom is what's really leading to a lot of the addictions and just certain lifestyles you should maybe reconsider. So yeah,
definitely, you're right. It's it is there. So yeah, I totally agree. I've kind of got no questions left for you now, Dan. Though, so I mean, it's been anything you want to kind of say before we stop recording this?
Oh man, like I said, I appreciate being on here. I appreciate before we recorded, I had mentioned it was really cool to see somebody outside of the United States recognize what I call a predominantly Americanized epidemic that unfortunately, from what you're telling me, is leaking out across the world. So it's really cool to not only see somebody watch it, but someone that's like, I get it. I know what's going on. And I'll be honest, a lot of the times, those are the parents telling me that.
Yeah.
That are like, I have the kid. I know exactly what you're talking about, from the education system to the pills. So, anyone that's watching this, I really hope, check out the film, obviously.
Yeah.
But I really hope that you get what Chris has received from it, what I'm trying to, put out there. I hope you understand it. It's not coming from a anti-meds thing, even though I do believe that, we're not put here to be on pills. I feel that you can fix just about anything, especially the mental stuff, as long as you have the right people. Because at the end of the day, someone just needs someone to listen to them. Mm-hmm. That's the huge thing, is a lot of people aren't being listened to. So I hope everyone can get that same message and find some hope in their lives and think outside the box and really find happiness. That's what I really wanted to get through with this film.
Oh, thank you, Dan, for your time. Truly appreciate it as always, and thank you to those who sent in questions. Hope everyone's enjoyed listening. This has been Chris Gordon with Dan Jenski on Hellblazer Viz.